Welcome back, everybody, to These Aren't the Nerds You're Looking For. Lorenzo Phan sitting here with
Kevin Hord.
How you doing, man?
It's a beautiful day. It's a wonderful Sunday.
It's going well, yeah?
Yeah, things are going well. Today is my parents' 46th wedding anniversary, so happy anniversary to them.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah, I had my mom over for dinner tonight because my dad is in Atlanta working on a house project with his brother, so...
that's cool.
Figured, invite mom over. She can see the grandkids and
yeah,
whatnot.
Nice.
So, yeah. Anyway, what do we got this week?
So we're going to be talking Star Wars Resistance today, the episode that debuted today. That's February 10th, 2019. The New Trooper. Brand new episode today. I will get into our normal summary. So without further ado, before I get into it, spoiler alerts for anybody who has not seen this episode. Again, this is The New Trooper. I will be doing a full episode summary here.
And I would like to say at this point that occasionally we do make some predictions for the future, which, if we were to get those predictions correct, would be, I guess, spoilers as well, which did happen last week. I was talking about what I thought might happen here with this episode, and I did make a couple of correct guesses. So
yeah, you'll have to remind me what those are once we do our review afterwards.
Sure.
Because I'm not gonna lie, I remember making predictions. I could not tell you what those predictions are now. So
hey, no problem, man.
Yeah, we'll get into that. But let me do the summary here. Once again, one final spoiler alert. Here we go. So we start out the episode with Commander Pyre visiting the Colossus. He's visiting Captain Doza. They do note that the pirate spy has disappeared, but the First Order will remain on the Colossus to maintain order. We cut to Eila and Kel, our children of Tehar. They are fishing. A stormtrooper spots them. I'm going to call it fishing. We'll discuss that later.
Sure.
A stormtrooper spots them, asks them for ID. They do note that they do not have any ID. They freak out. They end up knocking him out. We cut to Tam, Kaz, Niku, and Yeager in the shop. They are discussing the role of the First Order yet again. Tam gets offended or angry in some form. Her position is that they are there for protection. Kaz and Yeager kind of take the side that you are giving up freedoms for such protection. Tam is upset that Yeager is taking Kaz's side and storms off. Yeager does warn Kaz about the danger of the First Order should he be caught in his role as a spy for the Resistance. At this point, Eila and Kel enter the shop. They have to show Kaz something, so Niku, BB-8, and Tam all go along with Kaz and the two children of Tehar. They are shown that the children of Tehar knocked out a stormtrooper. Kaz and Niku panic. Tam wants to turn themselves in for being a part of knocking out a stormtrooper, but they bring the stormtrooper to the lower levels. Somebody radios in to the trooper. We discover that the trooper is CS-515. Kaz responds into the helmet, claiming that there were comm problems, and then decides to put on the trooper armor and check in as the trooper. The reasoning is that Kaz, pretending to be the trooper, can see if the First Order knows about the kids and can gather other intel as well. Sneaking around, Kaz runs into other stormtroopers and falls in line with them, starts following around. There are some protesters that are gathered outside in the marketplace, so they engage with them to some degree, and Kaz, during this engagement, sneaks away to head to the main transport to check in on what data the First Order does indeed have. There's a little moment here where he does pass by OP Pit from the previous episode, and does make a little joke about how cleaning floors would be faster with a sweeper. We cut back to Tam and Niku in the lower levels, and does once again express support for the First Order providing protection. However, Kel questions her on trusting the First Order over her friends that know her. and that she also trusts. Eila then explains to Tam why they're on the run and how awful the First Order is and how they killed everybody they know and destroyed their home. And Tam still is questioning this and is like, they probably had a good reason to, right? And they're just like, not that we know of, but in any case, all of our friends and family are dead. Tam feels bad over this. And right about now, the stormtrooper does start waking up. Niku shocks him back into unconsciousness. We cut back to Kaz. He is boarding the transport, and there is no record of the kids, so that is a relief to him. At the same time, a little droid arrives, and the droid retrieves a data rod. Kaz notices the data rod and takes it from the droid after a little fight with the droid. Another trooper arrives as Kaz is trying to get off the transport and is there to take CS-515 to see Pyre. We cut to Pyre, who is talking with Doza, asks Doza why he left the Empire. And then the troops arrive. I can't read my own handwriting there. So the troops do arrive and ask Doza to leave. There we go. So Pyre has a little meeting with the stormtroopers. He updates them. Phasma informed him that a full armed garrison is on its way. And Pyre is asked to report, or asks of a report of what is happening of CS-515. Kaz responds in disguise as CS-515, and Pyre does note that he is responding quite erratically. He was informed of this by another trooper, and Kaz's response seems to confirm the erratic behavior of CS-515. And with that, decides to send CS-515 to the transport for a wipe and reprogram. Kaz freaks out, goes on the run, calls Niku and Tam. He is being chased by some stormtroopers, and they run into the protesters once again in the marketplace. Kaz is able to slip away. Niku and Tam bring up from the lower levels the unconscious trooper, and they meet up with Kaz, who they then switch armor, and the troops find the real CS-515 and send him to what they call reconditioning. Kaz, Tam, and Niku return to the shop, and Yeager asks to see Kaz. Kaz gives BB-8 the data rod, and it contains a system map. There are lots of red dots on this map, and they are potentially First Order outposts. Yeager and Kaz can suspect that the First Order need the Colossus as a fuel station, and Kaz notes that they'll destroy every one of us to get it. And then we cue fanfare.
Cue fanfare.
Yeah.
So one real quick thing.
Yes.
I think the red dots are suggested to be like flagships, not outposts.
Oh, right, yeah. I think I heard it, and then as I was writing the note, I was like, what did they call it? And I just wrote outposts.
Yeah, I think they call
bases of some sort.
I think Yeager says fleets, maybe.
Right.
Something to that effect. Like, it's not a bunch of X-Wing, or it's not a bunch of TIE fighters. It's, Star Destroyers or something of the like, I would imagine.
Yeah. Or like even possibly like other occupied planets or something.
Yeah, that probably would include bases and or bases of operations, but not limited to that. I think there's could be denoting some smaller clusters of First Order activity as well.
Yes. Yep. So where do you want to start with this one?
Predictions that we made in the previous episode.
Remind me, please.
I believe I called out Kaz as being the new trooper. I think I said if this show went in the direction that I would like it to go, that is what's going to happen, is Kaz is going to end up with some First Order Stormtrooper armor and infiltrate. I think I said that this would be more of like a plan that he made, but not necessarily. It just kind of, it's happenstance here, but but we were on the right track. And then we also,
and this is definitely a one and done. It's not. Rebels definitely had a story arc where they went into cadet training and were there for at least a couple of episodes, I think. I don't think it was like a one and done arc.
I don't think it was a one and done either, but Ezra definitely was put in as a sneaky sleeper agent within the Imperial Academy as a cadet.
Right. Yeah, and he went into like their base of operations fully rather than them coming to him sort of situation. So, same but different sort of thing here.
Yeah, this is like this is part way between Han and Luke dressing up as stormtroopers and Ezra infiltrating an Imperial Trooper Academy.
Definitely.
So we're closer to the Luke and Han dressing to get by thing, but definitely also an infiltration method for information gathering.
Definitely.
So,
yep.
And then the other thing I think that we had talked about was discovering a little bit more history of Tam. We don't necessarily get her backstory, but we do get some information to inform the audience on the motivation of why she expresses her views of the First Order the way she does, and we will get to that. So, kind of questions, comments I had about this episode is the first thing that I saw was that Doza has a pinky ring.
Oh, I didn't notice that at all.
I didn't notice it on my first run through, but on my second one, when he's sitting at his desk, and like his little cup vibrates, and the landing ship comes down, the First Order landing ship, he's got a pinky ring on his right hand. Second, these landing ships, like, I thought that this was exclusive to Kylo Ren because it's a super badass fucking ship, right? It's I guess an upgrade from the Delta class, like, white transport that we see in the OT, right? And which just reminded me that was called a Delta class. This is an Upsilon class, or Upsilon, right? So not only do we have like the standard English Arabic alphabet, but we also have the Greek alphabet in the Star Wars universe, which for some reason stuck out to me today thinking about what ship this was. But anyway, this First Order landing craft is fucking badass, and I don't care what it's called. It's awesome. It's
really cool. Yeah, it has a cool look to it. And I think it's cool that Commander Pyre does get to travel around in it, you know. I have to say, I do really like Commander Pyre as a character. I know we've discussed if he's necessary, or if the multitude of named stormtroopers is necessary, but all the same, I don't know if we've talked about this, but I just like the voice actor that plays him, Liam McIntyre.
You have talked about Liam before.
I just like his voice, I like him. I was a fan of his from Spartacus when he was on that show. But I think he just has a really cool sounding voice for coming from that helmet,
Yeah, the voice acting with Pyre, and kind of Pyre in general in this episode, did stand out to me, and it stood out in a positive way. Like you said, we have talked about the necessity of Pyre as a character, or Phasma as a character in this series, and whether or not that really should be like one person. But I think Pyre took a step up on the ladder of proving himself to me as being necessary in this episode.
I agree. Yeah.
I don't think he needs to be a gold stormtrooper.
Yeah.
He could be a uniformed officer and do the same job. Like, he doesn't have to be a stormtrooper.
Yeah, he could almost be like a like not an inquisitor, like or like one of
like a Moff Tarkin.
Yeah, like a Moff. Yeah, like a Moff
Right.
level sort of character. Yeah. Yeah, so I was like Thrawn, but not Thrawn, like not as heavy duty as Thrawn.
Yularen.
Yeah, somewhere in that class of characters.
Probably less
but
than Tarkin.
Yeah.
Around the Yularen level.
Yes. So, I'm really curious because, like, we've seen characters make the jump, but knowing that Liam McIntyre in real life is he was really excited to have gotten this role, and
as he should be.
Yes, and this was like a secret he had to keep for like a year and a half or 2 years or something like that before the character debuted and his name was in credits and stuff. But I do think this would be a cool character to see in live action, but I think it would also confuse the shit out of like a lot of not as hardcore fans, I guess, per se.
Yeah, which is crazy that they put it into a kid show.
Right. Like, I think just the lay audience would just get confused that there's like a silver Phasma and a gold Pyre.
Can we discuss the fact that so Phasma is silver, right? Strong female, silver stormtrooper stands out, and then this show is like, nope, one-upping you with a fucking gold trooper, and it's a dude.
Right.
And everybody knows gold is better than silver.
But then it's Captain versus Commander, and so like we've had this discussion already. So like just to recap that, where I'm like, is it a platinum bronze thing? Like,
it's definitely like I know that I argued that it was bronze, but I have seen some supplemental stuff that you can find on YouTube or StarWars.com or wherever, and he's definitely gold.
Yeah,
and I
don't
think they call Phasma. Phasma is chrome. Platinum. I don't even think Phasma is silver.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's again.
It's just weird. It's like you develop this really nice, strong female character with like these standalone attributes. She doesn't have like a literal breastplate, which is good.
It's just like the same. Yeah, and the same armor, just on a much taller person.
And then you're like, oh, we got this even cooler trooper that's gold, and it's a dude. And I'm not saying like I have heard comments recently on, I don't even know where they came from, but talking about how like any or a lot of new characters in Star Wars, like when they pull the mask off, oh, surprise, it's a lady. And like, it's whomever was making this statement was like, not that it's overdone, but it's kind of overdone because it's like every time. And I guess
it was a lot all at once, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. And I don't think that's
depending on the.
Go ahead.
Depending on the point of view, though, like, I think I don't know how to phrase this without sounding off, but I got in an argument with a friend once who he was like I was really having it with him because he was feeling underserved, I guess is the nicest way to put this, by the fact that sequel trilogy and a lot of the newer like Forces of Destiny were, so like you have Rey as a main character, and then Forces of Destiny was like the little sliver of Star Wars that was going to be very much directed towards young girls, like young female children. And I got in this argument with him because he was like, well, it's just weird because, like, where's my character? I'm like, you grew up with, like, Han Solo and Luke Skywalker, you fucking asshole.
Yeah, that doesn't seem like a valid argument on his part. Like, where's my character?
Right, no. So, like, I got in this major argument with him where he's like, well, it's just, like, weird that, like, they're really pushing all these women. I'm like, yeah, because you had 40 fucking years of a main character. So, like, how about you back the fuck off and be okay with like a female character, and he got this. It got even worse because he was like, well, like, how am I supposed to relate to this character? I'm like, how do you think women have been dealing with this for fucking ever, dude?
Right.
Like, you know, like, how about you just identify with her personality traits and like the humanity of her?
How about you take one step back and look at the entire story and fucking enjoy it for what it is?
Right.
I don't think that I would have noticed that there was as many female leads or however protagonists, if you want to say, or antagonists or whatever popping up.
Just characters in general, yeah.
If it wouldn't have been pointed out to me.
Right.
To be honest.
Like honestly, like between Rey and Jyn Erso, like I was down. Like I was so excited just for a different take on it, you know.
Rey is super badass.
Right. And I wouldn't even call it a different take, just like a different character. You know, I just like the different characters. But even like Rogue One to me is a major standout where I know we've talked about it off air. I don't know if I ever mentioned it on air though, but like my dad, like I had to explain to my dad that Rogue One was not a follow up to Force Awakens. But after I said that, he goes, okay. And I just go, this is a separate story. And he's like, fine. But then the only reason he really wanted to watch it was because Donnie Yen was in it. That was like, he didn't know who the fuck anybody else was. He definitely, you know, like Felicity Jones, Diego Luna, no fucking clue.
Right.
But he just sees Donnie Yen. He goes, is he in it? Like, for real? Like, is he gonna fight a lot in it? I'm like he's a main character. Dad.
Your guess is as good as mine, but I think so.
Like, yeah, like I think this will be good. So, until something like that happened, you know, like the female character thing, I was just like, this is cool. Like I'm down. Like, and I didn't notice that we had like Rey, Phasma, Jyn, like all at once,
Holdo,
sort of thing. Holdo, yeah. That is not something that ever stood out to me. But Donnie Yen and I'm forgetting the other actor's name that played Baze.
Oh yeah, I don't remember.
And I feel really bad, but because he's a director in the Chinese film industry too. He's been in he's acted in his own films and stuff like that, but he's behind the scenes as much as he is in front of the scenes. It's just like that. I grew up watching Donnie Yen, so that's why like my dad and I were both like, "Holy shit!" Like Donnie Yen is in this. Like what? What?
He's also got one of the best fight scenes in Star Wars in general.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. You know, and he just has like some of the coolest lines, you know. And he has like one of my favorite jokes in all of Star Wars, which is when they put the bag over his head and he goes, "I'm already blind."
Are you serious? I'm blind.
So, but anyways, yeah, so like the idea of I don't know how I went on this tangent, but
Wen Zhang.
Oh yes, yeah, because he directed a film called like Let the Bullets Fly, stuff like that. So
yeah,
but no, like for my father and I, it was Donnie Yen. We're all in for Donnie Yen.
So we got to this point by me
bringing up Phasma, I think, and then
talking about Pyre, yeah. So I don't know. It's the character of Pyre is continually, I guess, being justified in my eyes, but maybe
they're building him up.
Some of the characterization I still question. I think that was my point of all of this.
I think on this show alone, it's going to be between like Pyre and Von Reg. Like those two especially are where I'm going to get confused on why those are two separate characters.
Okay. Yeah.
Like I can see the idea of like Phasma not dealing with like the day-to-day operations of like trying to take over the Colossus per se.
Right.
Like I can understand that point. Like so like we send Pyre, you know, like Pyre, I trust you. Go handle that situation and let me come back when we have a fueling station at the Colossus, right? But then like Von Reg is Like,
I
Von
kind of
Reg's
see
the weird one.
I kind of see Von Reg too. Like,
is he like the lead battler? I guess
he's like a specialty dude
the
that you
special
send
ops
in.
guy they send in, right? Yeah.
Yeah, he's like a first order Bond, but not a spy. Just like send in.
He's the spy in the Bond sense that James Bond always introduces himself by last name, first name, last name again.
Von Reg. Major Von Reg.
Well, like, if James Bond is a spy, why does he walk around telling everybody his goddamn name?
I don't know, man.
And this is
I'm not a spy.
As a huge James Bond fan, that is always the question that has gotten to me. Which, minor tangent, why I will put some credence to the fan theory that James Bond is a title and not the character's name. But if On Her Majesty's Secret Service is to be taken, the person he marries takes the last name of Bond, so it's his real goddamn name.
That's a what is it? That's a good story for another time.
Right. Yeah, it's another sidetrack anecdote there. But anyways, I'm glad just to move on away from this topic completely. I'm glad the Children of Tehar are back, as we have discussed.
Yeah, I was gonna say let's talk about fishing.
Yes. Would you is that fishing in some form? I guess they're catching the creatures that are flying around.
Okay, so I didn't even get that until you said, I guess they're fishing. We'll come back to that because I assumed that they were actually fishing, but then this it's like a plea gull or something. I don't remember what it's called.
Yeah.
It's like a combination gull, shrimp, fish, right?
Yeah.
And Kel tries to just grab it, and then it takes off. And I kind of thought that it just snatched at the line in the air before Eila cast it.
Mm-hmm.
That they were actually fishing out of the water, but then
from at first glance, that was my guess too. Was that the lure was all the way down in the water? But then as the scene continues on, that is not the case. The lure is just kind of hanging out in the sky, it looks like. Because I agree with you. At first I thought it was going for it before she cast it. Mm-hmm. But it looked like it was below the platform.
So why do they have two of these fish birds knocked out on what do? You reel it in, you hit it with a rock or what?
I don't know. That's what I was trying to figure out too. Because one is definitely unconscious because that's how they knock out the guard.
Well, they have two of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Because Kel slides one under the trooper's foot and makes him trip.
This is so serendipitous. How he throws one at the trooper because the trooper is trying to get Eila because they don't have their IDs, right? And so he throws a fish bird at this trooper, and the trooper turns around and is like, "Hey, what the fuck?" And then he just slides one across the ground.
Right. Yeah, in the blocking of the scene, there's about 1,000 other ways I would have gone with this that didn't involve throwing this fish gull thing across the floor. I just would have been fine if they both just fucking tackled him.
Yeah.
Right to the ground and just start hitting him in any form.
They could have used the broken bird fishing pole.
Right. Just anything this is a weird moment for sure that kicks things off.
And for some reason they thought it was hilarious that this birdfish got away and they broke their birdfish fishing pole. Not really sure why. But Kel uses a birdfish to knock this trooper out. The trooper he luckily throws it underneath the trooper's foot. The trooper steps on it, slips, and then slams his head on a railing and falls over and is knocked out for an extended period of time. When we cut over to the Kaz crew, or Yeager's crew, whatever you want to call them, the blue weird fish bacon stuff that they're eating for breakfast is the same stuff that these kids had tied to the line.
Yeah.
So they're eating birdfish bait, or the birdfish like this blue bacon.
Whatever the blue thing is, yeah.
What do I got? What do we got next? What was I going to bring up here?
Do we want to get into Tam and her stance on...
Yes, we
First
do,
Order
because
stuff?
this is when I said that we had talked about potentially learning some more about Tam's history.
Yes.
And we have brought up several times, like, why does Tam kind of stick up for the First Order? And she's like, no, they're just here to, like, do their jobs. They're here for protection. As they're eating breakfast, she's like, you know, I feel better with them here. I feel safer. Because Kaz is like, I can't believe Doza did this. He just gave him the run of the fucking platform. And she's like, well, I feel safer with him here. And Niku has a great line where he says, I feel safer as well. In a terrorized by a military sort of safer feeling.
Right.
But yeah, so Kaz asks Yeager, and Yeager compares the situation that's going on the Colossus to the Empire back in the day. And Tam disagrees, and she says essentially, like, my grandfather went to work for the Empire in some factory because there were no other jobs and he had to put food on the table. So if the Empire's evil, does that mean my grandpa was evil? Because all he was doing is taking care of his family. So she's equating, like, that which her grandfather did with the Empire also. And Yeager shuts her down and is basically like, listen, you're not old enough to understand, like, the actual details of this. What the Empire really did was take advantage of people to give themselves more power.
Right.
Like,
absolutely.
And she says...
And, yeah, Tam's point is extremely short-sighted, which is annoying to me.
Yeah.
Like,
I feel like
it's so anecdotal and it's so short, and it's just like a tiny fraction of a galaxy-wide problem.
I feel like this would be comparable to somebody being like, oh yeah, you think the Nazis were bad? Like, my grandpa went and worked in a factory building weapons of war for the Nazis because he had to put food on the table, and so does that mean my grandpa's evil? Like, no, no, not necessarily. Your grandpa wasn't evil. Your grandpa was doing a job to provide for his family, but the end game of all of this does not equal the same as the humbleness of your grandfather, right?
Right, absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely the comparison I definitely would have made as well. It's like, you know, like, just because you're a German citizen between, you know, 1939 and 1944 doesn't make you a bad person.
Right.
But, like, the overall military stance was not good.
Yeah.
So it's weird of her to ignore what has to be accessible history.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, that's the other weird part to me, is that I can't imagine there's anything about that history in this universe that would be locked away.
I guess it would depend on, like, where she grew up, because the Empire would have definitely, like, deleted any pre-empirical history so that they seemed to be the saving grace as opposed to the warring faction that came out on top, right? And then, you know, if she grew up on some backwoods planet and she only knew stories from, like, her parents of her grandparents' generation, then her view could definitely be skewed. And
that makes sense. I just still feel like in 40-ish years between the fall of the Empire to current time period of resistance, like, there would still have to be access of some sort to proper history, shall we say.
So if we are to believe that the Jedi and the Force have been forgotten and they are believed to be a myth, then I'm thinking also like the origins of the Empire would also be believed to be a myth.
Okay, that's a good point. Like, again,
and you also have to think that you also have to think that not every planet was under the thumb of the Empire as much as, say, Alderaan or, some other planets, because potentially some planets could have been, not necessarily economically been doing that well, and the Empire came in and set up shop, and they're like, hey, look, we're going to take care of the shit bums, like the hardworking people are going to continue doing what they're doing, and we're going to start some prosperity around here. And she could, or her family could come from a planet like that was, I guess, looked over by the Empire, but wasn't as oppressed by the Empire. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Yeah, I can understand that to some degree.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like if your town goes along with everything and you just got some people watching over you, like, hey, these people are here to help.
Right, like your day-to-day life isn't fully affected as negatively as other places could.
Maybe it was affected in a positive manner, from her perspective.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we get deeper into Tam stuff rather than like these little nuggets that we keep getting.
Mm-hmm.
So
Season
I do
2.
appreciate that we do have Yeager, who is old enough to remember life under the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming he still would have had to be rather young when the Empire fell.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say, but his brother definitely looks hella young. I mean, his brother doesn't look that much older than Kaz does. Yeager's age, I think, is a little bit ambiguous, but kind of throwing his brother in back during the Platform Classic episode de-ages Yeager a little bit in my eyes.
Yeah, like I would have pegged Yeager to be like 40-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Like definitely no older than 50.
But I guess like there's that picture of him and Poe at like the Battle of Jakku or whatever. So kind of however long ago that was.
Yeah.
But then that also makes it more difficult for
to place an age on these people.
Well, not only to place an age on the people, but to argue that Tam would be ignorant to the true oppression of the Empire.
Right, especially if the Empire was still, after the fall of the Empire, we're still kind of trying
after
to
the
do
death
what they
of the
could.
Emperor. Right.
Yeah. But, yeah, hopefully we'll see more of why she lives the sheltered life that she lived. I think how I'm going to put that.
I think it'll come. I think it'll be season 2. But what we do see in this episode is a little bit of OP Pit action.
Yep, OP Pit.
Which I dug.
Trying to do his thing. There were some decent Niku jokes this go around.
I love that you said that. I was going to ask you.
I will give him that in this episode. He had some lines that fit the mood more. I think that was the thing. Like the mood of the last episode was so schizophrenic, and that's why Niku didn't land, and the elevator joke from last week didn't quite land for me.
Mm.
But the pacing and the tone of this episode flowed enough that the various jokes from Niku and even Kaz landed a lot better with me, and like the little moment with OP Pit. And the way like Niku just shocks the trooper into unconsciousness again.
Here, let me help you fall back to sleep.
Right.
I knew something was coming.
Zap.
I was like, is he going to beat him on the head with a wrench? Like,
Right.
And then I thought, oh, maybe he'll have like a stun gun and, or, like a blaster set to stun or something. But no, it's like an electric
Like a bigger-
probe.
Yeah, like a bigger version of whatever Rose had in The Last Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was a super long version. Like she had like a short little like screwdriver length one.
I feel like this is like some sort of tool that is used
Right.
for mechanical repair that
Yeah.
he had with him. I'm not really sure. Do you want to talk about Kaz taking over, or his decision to take over the persona of CS515 and how that works?
Yeah, this is in my opinion, this is Kaz kind of recovering the ground that I saw being lost in terms of him being a spy and a decent spy at that.
Mm-hmm.
He makes mistakes here, but I think given the circumstances, these are understandable mistakes in that he never blows his cover, but the fact that Pyre and the other stormtrooper are like, yeah, this stormtrooper is like faulty, like what's going on with him? That makes sense because he was never like he doesn't know how the stormtroopers operate.
Well, also his intention was not to interact with the other stormtroopers. It was simply to sneak onto their ship and
Right.
retrieve information.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like given the circumstances, like I think Kaz did as well as I would be able to predict him to do,
Mhm.
right? Like reasonably predict him to do.
I thought it was great.
Yeah, and I think he did a good job and the fact that he knows that there's a data rod and fights a droid over it, knowing that there's information on this that could be helpful.
Mm-hmm.
I like his agency that he has there.
Mm-hmm.
So
the data rod with the map and the fight with the little BB droid, which I tried to look up and see if there's like what is a black colored BB droid, and there's like BB-9E, which is the one that BB-8 kind of rivals against in The Last Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the only two BB units that are like officially named that I saw anyway. And where was I going with this? I don't think that's the same droid, but the fight with Kaz and the droid's a little silly because the things weigh max 40 pounds. You could just pick the whole fucking droid up.
right. But Kaz ends up kicking its head off,
which was awesome.
Funny. Yeah. Because it did kind of explain something in which the lower ball unit still can operate, because it was still following him around while Kaz was carrying the head.
This happens in The Last Jedi when Poe is running to his X-Wing, and then the landing bay like gets hit, and they're thrown back out into the hallway by the explosion. BB-8's head comes off, and it's just laying in the hall, and his ball body rolls over, and then
like readjusts and picks up the head.
Magnetism happens or whatever. So
I completely forgot about that. Yeah.
But I guess this also showed that Kaz knew that they were two separate pieces and they could actually be separated. That and he does straight up speak BB ease, whatever you want to call that, because
droid speak basically is like the general term I've seen given to droid speak.
Right, but last week we talked about how Kaz doesn't understand Bucket, but he understands BB-8. So he also understands this other BB unit, which is cool because they're having a conversation or whatever. And
yeah, I have a First Order. I'm looking around because I thought I had a Funko Pop that may or may not be named, but I don't see it around. So
I thought you were like looking at a fly or something.
No, like I have a pile of Funko Pops, but I've started putting some away, so I'm like, I don't think it's still out. So
one thing I really did like about the Kaz's like decision to pop on all this stormtrooper armor and whatnot. Tam is like pissed this entire time. One, she forces herself on this group because the children from Tehar come to find Kaz and ask for help, and Kaz is like, yo, Niku, BB-8, let's go. And Tam's like, nope, I'm going too. And he's like, he's politely trying to tell her that she's not welcome. Right.
Yeah.
I didn't ask
clear,
for your
like,
help. And she's like, nope, I am going because I'm going to help them. I'm not helping you. Because she's mad at him as well. So then they go along, and when they find the stormtrooper, she's like, I can't believe this. Like, these kids assaulted this officer of the First Order, which doesn't make any sense because it's not an official government, right? Like, I can totally understand if it was like a fucking, United States Marine, and this took place on Earth, and a Marine got knocked out, like a Marine general or whatever, and then somebody was like, oh, you just fucking beat up a Marine, like, this is bad, like, we should go and explain what happened. But they
didn't. This is like basically like a KKK member, I guess. Like,
I don't know if I would go that extreme, but like,
so, without the hate, but just like in terms of like the organized group.
Yeah, just like an organized militia, an unauthorized organized militia, right?
Right. Yeah, like I couldn't think of another group that would maybe militarize themselves.
Back during the Revolutionary War, this would have been the rebels and not the redcoats, right?
Right.
So, at that point, I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like, there's not. I can't think of a.
This is an unsanctioned organization.
Yeah.
We'll put it that way. But Tam's Tam's like, hey, I really hope you don't get caught. You're going to get us all in trouble. And Kaz is like, oh, well, if I do, hopefully the First Order is as friendly as you say they are.
Right.
Like throwing it back in her face, And
I really like that moment because Tam really was pissing me off in this episode for that reason you kind of just mentioned, in terms of like she puts herself in this situation and then immediately hates on everyone for her being in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, dude, if like that's what bothered me, getting to the children of Tehar explaining their side of things, and then she still questions them. Like, she really does genuinely come off as a massive asshole to me.
Mm-hmm. Like,
I don't hate her character for it. I just hate her character in a way that I think you're supposed to dislike her for that, I hope there's a redemption in that, but the fact that the children literally tell her that their family is all dead and she questions them about it.
Well, so she questions them about it before. Because the way that it works is that she's like, why is the First Order after you anyway? And they're like, we don't really know. Like, we lived on this planet, and the First Order came in, and they just started doing all this fucking terrible shit, and then they started killing everybody, and so we tried to go on the run. And she says, yeah, but I'm sure the First Order had a good reason. And they're like,
that's what I'm saying, though.
Oh, okay.
That one line pisses me the fuck off, right? Like,
rightfully so.
That's what I'm saying, though. Like, they tell her point blank that their family is dead, and then her response is, maybe they had a good reason.
Right.
That is some fucked up shit, okay? Like,
that's like she deserved to be raped. Didn't you see what she was wearing?
Right. Like, that is blaming the victim shit, and coming from Tam is really, like, it. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it really makes me nervous for her character, per se, like, from a moral standpoint. Like, it's really weird. And I'm not saying that I dislike the character overall, but she by far, in that one little moment, is one of the more morally questionable characters of this entire show at this point, especially among the protagonists. But even then, like, at least like with Pyre and Phasma, they have a viewpoint, and I understand their viewpoint.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like, for her to think she's a good person, but then blame victims for getting killed and becoming fugitives and refugees and shit like that.
Yeah, that was
to two children. Like that is brutal. Like that is a fucked up stance.
Yeah,
right?
I totally didn't. I didn't see it in that light, but the way that you were expressing your opinion on it, you sold me. I'm totally on board.
So like that one little moment, like, because like early in the episode, you know, like we discussed it last week. I'm like, well, what is up Tam's butt? Like, what is going on with Tam? But that one moment, I was like, I had a complete flip on her character.
Yeah, totally.
So
next,
I'm still curious about if we're ever gonna see Eila's superpower ever again. By the way,
I hope so.
Yeah,
I hope so. I thought it was
when
going to come out in this episode.
I was hoping that would.
That would have been a really easy way for this fucking stormtrooper to be knocked out, not tripped by a fucking fish bird.
Well, even if the stormtrooper got knocked out by Fishbird, I was really expecting her to somehow use whatever power she has. Like, I hesitate to call it whatever force she might have. But whatever strange ability she has, like, I really thought she was going to gather information through whatever telekinesis she has, right? But nope. Just, I do appreciate that they put that on Kaz and let Kaz have that moment of intel gathering, but all the same, I was hoping that we'd ever see this power again coming from from Eila.
I think we will, and I think it was probably a missed opportunity in this episode. But I'll just say it was nice to see them back.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, I like their characters, you know, like we haven't seen them enough, and it's their characters are they're not around enough, and yet I do want to see more of them. It's kind of like the SNL way where when they get new cast members, like Lauren Michael will put them in like one little sketch but not oversaturate them because they want people to notice the new members and like make them starring cast members, you know?
Right.
So like it's that's how I feel. Like nothing has annoyed me about their few appearances, and I like their little bits are they're a good tease that make me want more of these characters.
That's I guess that's a positive thing. Yeah. Next thing on my list to talk about was this disturbance / protest going on the deck of the Colossus.
Yeah, in the marketplace.
Marketplace, right? Which is basically everybody except for Kaz Yeager and his gang and people that have been given names before, or Aunt Z, mad at stormtroopers, and they're doing the typical like throw fruit, have chants, kind of rouse rabble, I suppose.
Yeah, and the main point they're seeming to get across is that they want the occupation to end, basically, is what it is, right? Mm-hmm. So it's fairly straightforward, fairly simple. Like,
yeah, they're like, it's a free platform, we can be here, because it seems like all that the First Order is doing at this point is walking around, taking people's names. If they don't have ID, they detain them until they figure out who they are, right?
Right.
And so these people are like, no, like, there's no reason for me to tell you who I am. Like, I can keep that information myself. And it's just, people are pissed that this occupying force is there. I feel the First Order occupation more in this episode than I did in the one titled First Order Occupation that we watched last week.
I absolutely agree.
But all those questions that I had of, like, was this really an occupation and yada, yada, yada. Like, with this episode, I get that feeling that's what has happened, so I'm cool with it, right? Kind of bumps up last week's episode maybe a notch or two, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think the difference is like last week's episode, we saw one guy getting accosted for an ID, but this time we do see the whole platform kind of coming together. So even without having to see explicitly what the First Order is doing on a large scale, just knowing that the citizens at large are feeling this way, it helps that tension.
Absolutely. It's not
So
just Kaz like looking for something, right?
Yeah.
And or potentially making something out of nothing.
Yeah.
Not saying that that's what he does, but from a certain point of view, maybe it could be seen as that, right?
Yeah. So this protest again makes me question more why Tam is so.
She's definitely the oddity. She's like the odd man out here, where everybody else is like, no, the First Order being here is bullshit, and she's like, no, like they're just doing their jobs. People, like, chill out. They're just here for our protection. Yeah. And there's like people getting billy clubbed, and there's so. There's
privacy is literally being invaded, and she's just like, no, just give it over and it's all fine. Like, she takes that
my grandpa worked in a factory, man.
Right. It's like that stance, like, oh, if you don't get in trouble, then what do you have to worry about? It's like, no, it's the whole idea that they're even like keeping the constant eye on you, which is bad, like.
Right. So there's like two scenes of this protest, right? And the second one is when Kaz tries to escape. I skipped over a couple things that I'd like to come back to, but that's fine because we're talking about this now. It's when Kaz tries to escape, and he runs out and is accosted by all of these protesters. And then the three troopers that are following him, who are named in the credits as Stormtrooper 1, Stormtrooper 2, Stormtrooper number 3, right? So that is what it is. They start getting barraged by this fruit and these comments and everything else. And then Kaz is able to slip back inside before the door closes, which, okay. But then when they figure out where they need to go, because I think the detail is that the armor itself has like a tracking device built into it.
Yeah.
And so they go back inside, and they're kind of blocked off by people, and one of the troopers just like pulls up and he's like, stun you, stun you, stun you. And I was like, holy shit, like that's fucking ruthless.
I agree. It's a brutal moment that kind of just plays out.
Well, because they like one person gets stunned and drops to the ground, and then everybody on the platform puts their hands up, and then they're like, we surrender, don't shoot us. And then one of the other troopers like, pew, pew, pew. And then they just walk inside. And everybody else was like, what the fuck? But I think if Tam would have seen this, like, would she still have been like, no, like, those people shouldn't have been doing that? Or,
I'm not going to lie. Like, Tam, again, based on that one line, Tam has moved so far down one end of the spectrum that there's going to be a lot of work, I think, to bring her back. Right. I think it's purposeful in the way they pushed her out that far, that I feel like even if she did see it, she would again give that, like, they had good reason to, like, they were in danger and those protesters were rowdy.
I don't know if she would have gone that far, but I think she definitely would have gone to the point of, well, you don't know what they did when you weren't there. Like, maybe they deserved it. Like, it's like one of those maybe it was justified things. Like, you don't know all the details, so you can't condemn the officers because they're professionals type deal.
To me, she is the full Samuel Seabury of this universe at this point.
Okay.
If you understand that reference at all.
I cannot argue against you.
There's a deep historical cut back to our old Revolution days. So, yep.
So the last thing. Well, I got two more things.
Yeah.
One is Pyre's conversation with Doza about why Doza left the Empire, and Doza simply says, I'll just chalk it up to like personal reasons. We were about to get some more information, and then this is when Kaz and his stormtrooper escort like bring him into Doza's office.
Yeah.
So I really feel that information is like just on the other side of door A, B, or C, and I don't know which door is opening for next episode, but I think we're going to see it in the coming weeks.
Yeah. Do you think Kaz still remembers that he took a look at that
For sure.
officer outfit? Okay.
For sure.
Yeah. Like that kind of happened, and then the show kind of forgot about it. Like it brings this up, but it's still different than reminding us that we saw that outfit to begin with,
I don't know. I think it definitely reminds us. I mean, Commander Pyre's like, yo, Doza, why did you leave the Empire back in the day?
I think the difference to me is that like the outfit brought up that question. This confirms that question, but the major question is what Kaz will do with that information, right?
The major is Von Reg. Not the question. Right. Not the major question.
Very good.
Do you have any predictions of what we're gonna see as far as what Doza's personal explanation is, or is this gonna be like a love lost type of deal?
Yeah, I think Doza's gonna have,
because there is no Mrs. Doza.
Yeah, it's gonna be something weird where like the Empire did him real dirty somehow, like. But also, it's gonna be like, it's gonna be an opposite Tam. I think like he's gonna be the Tam foil, the counterpoint per se, So I don't know, like that, or we're gonna get like a somehow Doza slip through the cracks and Leia's gonna come back and like put him on trial, like. Like the, like how we still have like 90-something-year-old like Nazis getting tried and put to prison nowadays.
Or so since it's canon now that Grand Moff Tarkin was in a same-sex relationship with TK-421, do you think that Doza is going to be upset because he was actually having like an affair with Grand Moff Tarkin? And that's what drove him to leave the Empire?
I'm not going to lie. That would be like one of the more interesting scenarios we could get this show in. I don't think it'll go there, but...
I mean, we've been right in the past.
That would be a really interesting turn on things. But yeah, no, it's just going to be something weird where like the Empire did him dirty. But like, why does he still have the outfit in his closet? And why did he not burn it,
Because that was like,
was that his like does he look in there and he goes like, I wish I knew how to quit you, and then like shuts it again and like walks away? Like
he opens it up and he's like, this was Moff Tarkin's before he was a Moff.
Like he opens it and he goes, Moff, I swear. And then like walks away.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
So anyways, I don't know. Carry on. Sorry.
It's worth a thought. Last thing I got is this map that they get out of the data rod, which a data rod is an odd description of a data
card. Basically, it's a small data card. Yeah,
it's a data rod.
Yeah.
But it's a map, right? So it's got some planets on it. All the red dots we kind of discussed, like, there be them ships or clusters of ships or outposts or whatever they may be.
Full-blown bases, yeah.
Bases. Station Theta Black is probably indicated somewhere on this with a red dot. There is some Arabesh on here. And I went ahead and figured out what that said. And it's just names of 5 different planets. We've got Yavin, Takodana, Jeddah, Jakku, and Tuan Kiti. Now, Tuan Kiti is the only one that I didn't recognize, so I looked into it, and this is where Rathars are from. Most specifically, this is where Han and Chewie went to capture the Rathars that they had on their ship later. So, I don't know if that's just like a, hey, if you're a nerd enough to fucking translate this, it's going to be the planet that Rathars are from, or like why that name was chosen specifically. The other ones all kind of make sense. You know, we know about the Battle of Jakku. Takodana is probably keeping an eye on Maz Kanata, to be honest.
Right.
Yavin is notorious for the Rebel base, and then Jeddah is Jeddah, you know. But yeah, Tuan Kiti, I had a question on that one. So, but that's it. That was just some background information. As far as voice actors go, I don't think anything stood out to me.
Yeah, there was nobody new in this episode per se. Yeah, like all returning players for the most part. You know, 3 new stormtroopers, but
those are voiced by 2 different people. One is Fred Tatascori, who is Orthog, the hapless protester, and Stormtrooper number 1. And then Jonathan Lippo is Stormtrooper number 2 and Stormtrooper number 3. So there you have that.
Yeah. Can we discuss the reprogramming?
Yes.
Yeah, like...
What you got?
Is that a thing they've done before, or is that new to the First Order? Like,
apparently it is a thing that they've done before. I guess that's why...
Like, was this a thing that was happening during the Empire?
No, because that's the Empire, not the First Order.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, this isn't a thing like stormtroopers in general have gone through.
No, I think this is like a new thing. I think this is like First Order specific, and I'm imagining that this is kind of the difference between like you have droids which you can literally program. Right. You have clones which you can genetically program, and then you can train them in a certain way, and you still have like these microchips in their heads that can kind of redirect their thinking or like activate certain protocols, right? Mm-hmm. And then you have like the next step, which is the First Order stormtroopers, which are wholly organic beings that are taken. They kind of take the Jedi approach, where you take the kids young, you indoctrinate them all the way up. But maybe this like brain scrubbing is kind of like an electroshock therapy / whatever's going on in A Clockwork Orange, exposure indoctrination. I'm not really sure. Rather than I don't think they just like plug them in and like redo their brain. Maybe they shoot a laser into their brain or something.
Yeah, it's like not a Matrix sort of reprogramming, but definitely some sort of, like Clockwork Orange is what I was kind of imagining. But yeah, like this is kind of a new feature to the universe overall, right?
Yeah, it's kind of terrifying.
Right.
They call it a mental wipe. It's called like 4 different things: mental wipe, reprogramming, brain scrape.
Yep,
which is probably the most terrifying one. And what do they call it at the end? Just
reconditioning. Yep, reconditioning. So
reconditioning probably describes it most accurately, where they're literally just reconditioning the person, reindoctrinating the ideas, whatever the process of going through that. I don't really know.
At the lightest version, I was imagining like a re-education camp style thing, which was a known thing that happened in Vietnam after the communists took over South Vietnam. A couple of my uncles that stayed behind or who were not able to leave in 75 when the communists took over Saigon, they told me about how they didn't see their families for about 1.5 years because they were in quote unquote re-education camps that were quote unquote like good away time to learn the communist mantra.
So
right.
It would probably be something similar to that.
Right. So that's the lightest version, but then like the other terms they use, like wiping and reprogramming, led me to step away from like those real world connotations and maybe think more Clockwork Orange style things as well. But it could be a combination of both. You know? So, but yeah, so like this is an interesting feature of the First Order that has been introduced here, which then, you know, like I understand that she would not be privy to this information, but it only makes Tam's ignorance on the matter more troublesome.
Yeah, well, hopefully Kazuda is able to kind of fill her in, although I don't think that she would necessarily believe anything that he had to say, you know. Oh, you probably misheard him, Kaz.
Right.
You know.
Do you think her opinion would change if she knew he was a spy working for the Resistance and therefore would have stronger requirements of proof, I guess, of evidence, rather than just like this is a gut feeling, this is how I feel about the First Order? Or do you think that would just make her turn more like, oh, you're prejudiced against the First Order?
Yep.
Yeah. Tam just sounds like
the
an
latter.
asshole at this point. Yeah, Tam sounds like a complete asshole at this point. I'm sorry to say.
I know we have questioned, and we kind of figured out how old Kaz is. He's like around the 21 to 23 to 24 age.
Early-ish 20s, yeah.
Niku can almost be ageless to me. I mean, he could be young, like a young buck that just came on to the Colossus, like stumbled upon, you know, got on the wrong fucking bus or something and ended up here and was like, well, might as well make the best of it, you know, to like an old seasoned mechanic that's been just kind of floating around the galaxy for hundreds of years. Like, I have no idea with him.
I agree.
But what about Tam?
Tam, I still feel like is
like
not
Kaz's
early
age
20s, yeah, like younger, yeah, not like super young, but definitely younger than Kaz. Like she's an older teen, maybe, right?
Like older than Tora.
Yes,
Tora's like 15,
16. Yes, she's older than Tora for sure. So like, you know, like I would put her in like that 18 to 20 range.
Okay,
right. So like 18 to 22, somewhere in that.
Like old enough
region.
To know everything, but
young enough to still
young enough to not know that you don't know everything.
Make weird mistakes, like how the stormtroopers are straight up just stunning people in public, and
they are definitely doing that.
You're running away and nobody can fucking stop them. But yeah, and the fact that Yeager as well also stops and is like, "Yo, the Empire was fucked up, okay, and this is just the new version. This is Empire 2.0."
Right. You weren't there. So yeah,
it's a bizarre stance.
It was kind of nice to see Yeager like kind of step out of his seclusion comfort zone, because he holds everything pretty tight to the chest, and he's like, at least at this, he's like, no, you're wrong,
right, like this is bad,
you're
like this
too
is
young
bad
to understand. Because I think if circumstances were a little bit different, like if they had heard like a news story or something about this happening somewhere else, he would just kind of be like, oh, yeah, I don't know, and just kind of chill in the background. But now that it's happening around them and there's some actual experience and debate going on in his repair shop, he's going to step his foot just a little bit closer to being exposed for his history. Definitely, and put his opinion out there. Yeah. So, you got anything else for this week?
No, should we just go thumbs up, thumbs down?
Thumbs up, thumbs down, and one word review.
Oh, God, I forgot about the one word review.
That's right. I came up with a good one earlier, and I didn't write it down. So, there's that.
Right. But I'll kick it off. Thumbs up.
Awesome.
Strong thumbs up on this one, I think. I really enjoyed this one, and the story is there. It's well told. I think despite my complaining about Tam, I think it's actually necessary for this episode. You know, my dislike for her kind of builds up why I like this episode even more, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think this was just an all around good episode. It's fun, you know. It's fun, but there's some good tension there. We're bringing back players that I always hoped would come back in the Children of Tehar.
Yep.
And even they get a point across to Tam. You know, it wasn't anything new that we haven't heard from them, but just hearing it again reinforces kind of the danger that everybody is in fact in, which has kind of been missing from the last few episodes. So this is probably like one of the stronger episodes of the show for sure.
Yeah, I would definitely consider this one of the best episodes that we've seen so far. This definitely rivals what we saw a couple of weeks ago in the Doza Dilemma.
Yeah.
This one edges above the Doza Dilemma for me, so yeah, thumbs up for me as well, which is, you know, it was nice. It was nice to see there was, it's not overly complex. It's pretty straightforward. This is what's happening. Kaz gets this idea to actually do some legit spy work, and he's doing it for a good reason. He's got kind of a double thing going on where it's not just like, oh, I'm going to go be a spy, which I feel like in the first few episodes he would have been like, I'm going to go spy because, you know, being a spy is a spy and whatnot. Right. But he's got a legitimate desire to help these two kids that he has run into along the way. Yeah. And it was pretty well executed. Like, the questions that it left me with are good questions that I look forward to finding answers to.
Definitely, yeah. Like the openness here does in fact make me want to see future episodes, whereas I know we've discussed when the show is at its worst, I'm just like, oh god, we got to watch another episode. But no, like now we're at a point where I'm like, yes, more episodes. Let's see where we go. Let's see who comes up. And like I said, I really do genuinely like Pyre as a character, you know?
Yeah.
As an antagonist, he's really interesting to me. If we can't get Phasma in every episode, I think Pyre is a good secondary character for this show.
Awesome. I put Pyre down for the capital B bad guy of this episode.
Definitely. Yeah.
Can you boil this down to a one-word review?
No.
Come on.
No, no.
What?
I got nothing.
If somebody was like, hey, how was that episode? What would you say? Come on, Lorenzo, you're better than this.
I don't operate in one word. That's why. That's why we've been talking for like 80 minutes now.
I know. That's why this part is a challenge.
Right.
I would say intriguing or revealing. I think revealing is what I'm going with here.
Okay. Yeah. I'll go. Yeah. Sure. See? Even then, I got nothing. Okay. Intriguing is good. Yeah.
Do you want to try to make any predictions for next week?
Just to look forward, it looks like the next week's episode is called The Core Problem.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. I hope we don't sidestep anything that we've been rolling on here and introduce some various core issue regarding the planet or the platform.
Yeah, I don't think, like, are you talking about like a mechanical core?
Yeah, that's why what core are we talking about here? Is it a physical core, or am I just reading too much into it and it's just like literally like what is the problem of the First Order being here?
I think it's the root of the problem. I don't think it's like the location of the problem.
Oh, we'll see. Something tells me that we are going to regress.
Okay.
And some actual core will melt down.
All right.
Especially if they're there for fuel, if the First Order is there for fuel,
Like
some
a fuel core.
Some fuel core will melt down and fuck shit up for the First Order.
All right. Well, you heard it here first.
That's my prediction. You will have to remind me next week that I even said this.
Yeah, I'm actually going to write that down.
Write it down. And Lorenzo thinks there is a physical core that will melt down.
Yeah, and I'm saying that there is not. So I'm gonna disagree with you on that. And
I'm really excited to see next week's episode now.
yeah, we'll get to the bottom of this one next week. But in the meantime, if you want to contact us on social media, you can hit me up on Twitter at Not the Nerds, Lorenzo over on Facebook at Not the Nerds Podcast, old school style through email, notthenerdspodcast@gmail.com. As always, we'd like to throw a shout out to Lindsay, who took care of our intro outro music. You can reach her also through email, strangefantasymusic@gmail.com. And then thanks to Kevin Warren for putting together the podcast artwork. Hit him up over on Twitter at They Call Me K-Dub. If you made it this far, you have definitely already, you know where to find us as far as podcasts go. But check us out over on YouTube. Give us a subscribe over there. That'd be awesome. And, reviews any which way you think about it or feedback is always welcome. So next week, we've got the core problem. That's what it's called, right?
Yes.
The core problem. And until then, I've been Kevin.
Lorenzo here.
These aren't the nerds you're looking for.
Bye-bye.